people. I grew up on the university campus. I was born in 1965. So most of my conscious upbringing was in the 70s. It was a time of intense ferment in Jamaica culturally and politically too. And where I grew up was a community of professors and senior lecturers and so on, and their children. And it was like one big college. So I was kind of exposed really to a more Afrocentric way of thinking from that time, although as you can see I myself come from a more Jewish background, but I grew up as in an Afrocentric thinking community, and that had a big influence on me and has always had a strong influence on how I think my empress, my wife is a Jamaican African woman from Augustown, and I bless her with everything. So when I got drawn into this opportunity, I suppose I should call it, for giving service to Jamaica as a minister of government, I've never really been in politics in terms of representational politics. I've never run for any office or anything, but through friendships that were built along the journey of my life, I got offered the opportunity to serve, and I was fortunate because I had been in business. I'm a lawyer by profession, but I was in business from the early 90s through an investment firm that me and two brethren just started, and it was very successful. That we were very successful, and we decided we didn't want to spend the rest of our life doing that. So we sold that business actually in 2006 to a Canadian bank, and that was just before the world kind of did the crash. So we were fortunate at the time. It wasn't any brilliance or anything, it was just luck, but it worked out well for us and things. So I thought, well, I don't want to spend the rest of my life just doing private work as a lawyer for people, and I wanted to give back a little. So when the opportunity came, I said I would accept the offer. Elections came at the end of 2011, and the party which I am connected with were successful. So I was offered this opportunity to serve as the Minister of Justice and took it on. But I'd all in my mind from long time, I said if I ever reach in a position like this, I would like to use whatever power I have to try and deal with certain things that I regarded as being unjust, and the treatment of ganja is one of those things. So, moving forward, what we have really tried to do is to, well, first thing we did was the criminal record side of it, because enough man out there, enough youth and others, women too, I suppose, out there, have this shackle around them from having gone before the courts for a split or a draw weed or a small quantity and things. And that is a major, impediment to their life, their employment opportunities, their travel opportunities and things. So the first thing we have done, and that has now manifest because it passed through Parliament fully, is to eliminate those criminal records for those. So anybody who has that criminal record, because the records are not in a database, we couldn't have an automatic thing where you press a button and it's all removed. You have to actually send in an application. But once you send in the application, the Ministry of Justice, it's automatic. There's no discretion to refuse or anything. It's automatic that it wipe out. And going forward, that's for the past. But going forward now, until the law change, anybody who go before the court in the intervening period for a split or a small quantity or smoking, we will not get a criminal record. The law eliminates the criminal record going forward. So that is done. And the next step now, which is soon to come to fruition, is the actual decriminalization of ganja for the purpose of possession and smoking. And we have put a 2-ounce limit on the quantity, but the law is worded in a way that allows the minister, that's me I think, to change that. I can change that. I would have to get Parliament's approval, but I don't have to do it by way of legislation. I can do it by way of a ministerial order. So, so I started that with the 2 ounces because when we research it, that seemed like a small, 2 ounces is not a lot away, but it's an amount where most man who agree on it is that, they will be all right with that. So we did that. And that is going to come to Parliament shortly. And that, for the most probably, for the purpose of today's meeting, perhaps the most important element of that particular piece of legislation that is going to come is that it recognizes Rastafari in it as an exception from the general rule around possession of rule. So that is the first time I think Jamaican law has really recognized Rasta as a special community entitled to special treatment. And we have to work out some of the details of how that will play out. And Prophet Greg and I and Maxine and Jabi and some other elders from the community met in my ministry a few months back. It was a very important meeting, and they planted the seed in my mind of the idea of having special spaces for the Rasta community where they would be free to engage in their cultural practices. And you mentioned that again today, Prophet Greg, and that will be in the law. It would be designated. So that, what I heard you say now is that you have the REPA, the Rastafari Intellectual Property Authority, which would be kind of like a focal point for putting forward the names of those, or the specific locations that you would like to see designated, yeah? That's a good thing. So that would mean that that authority can interface with the government directly to get those things. And then what we have also, Cabinet has agreed, but and that legislation is now being drafted, is the whole idea of medicinal marijuana and industrial hemp. Now that is a more commercial, business, economic thing rather than directly a kind of human rights thing. This is more on the business side of life now. And essentially what it is going to require is the establishment of a licensing authority and then the issuing of licenses for persons who wish to produce, grow ganja for medicinal purposes or industrial hemp. And that now, I have to develop the specific proposals around what the licenses will actually say. In other words, what will be the basic rules governing who gets a license, what they have to show to get it, and all those things. And that is really the challenging part, in a sense, because you want to do it in a way that is inclusive. In other words, that a small farmer can come in. I don't want a system where have some rules where you have to be a big man with a jacket and tie and have enough money to be able to access this thing, because this thing is really your thing. Yeah, man. It's your thing. So I don't want it to be designed in a way that would exclude anybody really who comes at it from a pure, pure heart and wants to do it in the right way and things. So what I need to do really next, I think, is to establish a working group of stakeholders to help me develop those rules. That's what I want to do. And obviously your organization, I would want to be represented on that working group. It can't be a huge working group, because the way these things are, when you're getting down to nuts and bolts, you can't have too massive a group of persons. It needs to be tight so you can get the work done. So we can discuss that, but maybe you can start thinking about who we would want to be like your representatives on this working group. And there are some other groups like the Westmoreland group under Ras IRB, where him kind of part of your group in a way. I don't know where, because I met him same time with you. So, but he and I had a meeting, and he had some strong views too, and so on. So I intend to circle back with him and include him. And there will be other persons who are not part of the community who will be on that group, because you can imagine that this is a thing that the wider society has a strong interest in. From you have University of West Indies are interested in it. Dr. Henry Lowe is meet with me and things. Yeah. So it's a big thing. I mean, I am kind of trying to be a diplomat in a way because, America is right there, right? On our doorstep. And, position America has taken over the years towards Ganja. Yeah, and look at Jamaica, we are so exposed in so many ways. We have all this big debt, we're in an IMF agreement, we have to borrow from the multilaterals, and so we have to be very mindful and strategic in how we approach. We can't just run down the road like without using our head and planning what we're doing properly. But so far, under President Obama and his Attorney General, Mr. Holder, they have basically allowed this thing to evolve quite quickly in America at the state level, not at the federal level. Because in the American Constitution they have state rights, and states make their own laws on certain issues, and then you have the federal law, which is the law that governs the whole of America. Everybody has to comply with, and they haven't changed their federal law on ganja at all. So ganja is still illegal in America, but certain states have passed laws legalizing it to some level, and the federal government haven't come down on them and said, no, you can't do that. They said, okay, we will allow you to move as long as you respect certain principles that they have set. For example, no, they don't want any kind of organized crime coming into it. They don't cross state lines. That's a big one up right now. It has to stay within the borders of the state. And so U.S. Embassy reached out to me about and asked me what we really are dealing with. So I got back to them and said, well, exactly what you are dealing with. And we've seen, and they told us what they had been, their approach going forward, respectfully, and I respectfully replied and said, yes, we will work, because their thing is, they want to see the international drug conventions respected, right? But they say there's sufficient flexibility in those conventions that will allow each state to make up their own system as long as it doesn't negatively impact, for example, the fight against organized crime and drug trafficking. Yes. So we said, well, we are definitely in favor of trying to cut down on organized crime and drug trafficking, because drug trafficking in Jamaica bring a lot of guns into our country and create a lot of problems. So we have definitely, that is a key part of our policy as well. So we don't expect any real problem with the United States, where we have friendly relations with them, and they themselves are looking at this whole thing and seeing that it has to change, and so we are moving in that direction as well. But the International Drug Convention is an important document. I think it was formed in 1961, and over 100 countries are party to it. And it does limit, for example, ganja's production, distribution, and so on for recreational purposes. It doesn't allow this. Now, I don't think that's sustainable. And I think those rules are going to have to be adjusted. And I think that will happen. But we can't run ahead of that, because Jamaica being a small country, we have always had to say we respect international law. So we rely on international law to protect us. But we're not really big on bad. So at the end of the day, it's the law we have to rely on to say, well, you can't bad us up because the law doesn't allow it. So we have to always be respectful of the law, and we can lobby and work towards reform of the law, and we will. But we always have to move in accordance with that beat. But in the meantime, there's a lot that we can do, and which we are doing. I know everybody is saying, why we're going to lose this opportunity and we have to move fast, and like them try to get me bummy. But but we just said we're not losing an opportunity, because Jamaica grow ganja for years, and Jamaica the culture and the understanding of ganja is in Jamaica. And we have a brand, a worldwide brand, which is really associated with your community. Your community really build the brand. So we have to acknowledge that and respect that. I think, Maxine, your group is going to have a lot of work going forward in terms of that whole question of intellectual property and indigenous and the brands. Like in your document here, you mentioned some words, some brand names like high grade and other words. Now to establish some kind of rights over those names is going to be a challenge. I think you have to work towards that. But that's important though, because there's great value in those brands. Because can you imagine T-shirts and merchandising and everything else, or even sell when weed is eventually, when ganja is eventually allowed for recreational use by adults and things. When that day comes, I mean, having a pack, I don't know how to package, but you can imagine pure Jamaican, high grade, or yeah, right, approved by this is approved by the Rastafari Millennium Council. That's an organic thing. Yeah, those will be very significant economic rights. So you guys need to think about that and maybe get your legal support to help you with that. I know personally that doesn't fall under my portfolio. That is industry and commerce deals with the intellectual property rights. But I know, for example, the whole question of the extension of copyright is a live issue which the industry has been pushing to try and ensure that the rights of the music are not just lost to the public domain. And so they are mindful of these things, but I think you need to continue to focus on that area. So basically, I would just say I'm sure getting to this is going to be a journey. This is not going to happen in one stroke of the pen. But we are making steady steps, and I would say within the course of 1 year, because the process has already begun, and within that 1 year, we will have moved significantly forward. There will be other things I know you will want to see done. So I'm not telling you I'm delivering all of this one time, but I'm prepared to meet with you and discuss and work through the issues, and my heart is very much in favor of coming up with a system that doesn't oppress anybody, and where people can do, as long as they're doing things for the right reasons and not to hurt anybody else, then they should be they should be able to. So that is really the approach I'm taking, and I look forward to further discussions with your group and other groups who are interested in this issue, and trying to work through the details to come up with an acceptable solution to all problems. Thank you very much.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll open the floor to some questions.